The day after my son David's funeral, my daughter-in-law, Stephanie, threw me out of the house. "It's mine now," she said, her voice cold as she stood in the doorway. At the will reading a week later, she smirked. "Hope you enjoy being homeless, Eleanor." Then the lawyer unsealed an envelope that changed everything. If you're reading this, let me know where you're from in the comments. And if you love a good karma story, stick around because this one's about letting people reveal who they truly are. It began with a call at 3:17 a.m. David's voice was weak, gasping, "Mom, my chest. I can't." The line went dead. By the time I reached the hospital, my 45-year-old son was gone. A heart attack, the doctor said, clinical and detached. Nothing could be done. Stephanie stood beside me in the waiting room, her face a mask of grief. But I saw something else flicker in her eyes, something like relief. I brushed it off as my own shock. "What happens now?" I whispered, still reeling. Stephanie straightened, her tone sharp. "Now we face reality, Eleanor. David's gone, and I have decisions to make." Her words chilled me. We'd never been close, but David had always bridged the gap. Now that bridge was gone, and I was starting to see how wide the divide really was. "I'm here for you," I said, reaching for her hand. She pulled away. "We'll see." I told myself it was grief, that people process loss differently. I was wrong. The next 3 days were a blur of funeral planning. I offered to help with costs. David was my only child, but Stephanie insisted on handling everything. "I'm his wife," she said. I know what he wanted, so I focused on writing his eulogy, calling family, and holding myself together. At 67, I'd buried my parents and husband. But losing a child was a pain I couldn't fathom. The night before the funeral, I sat in David's old bedroom in their house, staring at photos. David at college, his wedding last Christmas. None included me. When had Stephanie removed them? She appeared in the doorway, her eyes calculating. "We need to talk, Eleanor." The funeral was flawless, elegant flowers, David's favorite hymns, a polished reception. But Stephanie's performance, as the grieving widow, was marred by her comments about new beginnings. I overheard her whispering to her sister, behind a floral arrangement, "The life insurance will cover the mortgage for years, without extra expenses." Her sister asked, "What about Eleanor?" Stephanie's laugh was sharp. "Not my problem anymore. I'd been living with them for 2 years, ever since I sold my house to give them $40,000 for their down payment. David called it temporary, but it became home. I cooked, cleaned, felt useful. Now I realized how naive I'd been." In the kitchen, Stephanie was blunt. "This house is mine now. I need space to grieve without you here." Her words hit like a slap. Where am I supposed to go?" I asked. She shrugged. "You're an adult, Eleanor. Figure it out." I packed my life 67 years into 4 suitcases and 2 boxes. By 6 p.m. the next day, Stephanie was hurrying me out, carrying my bags to ensure I left. As I drove to a budget hotel, her parting words echoed, "David felt sorry for you, but I don't." At the Hampton Inn, I stared at my reflection in a sterile mirror, widow, childless, homeless, but something stirred, not just grief, but a spark of defiance. Stephanie thought she'd won, but David knew her better than she realized. 2 weeks later, David's lawyer called. "Mrs. Fairfield, you're named in David's will. We need you at the reading next Tuesday." I was stunned. Stephanie had insisted David left me nothing. At the law office, she arrived in a designer dress, her brother Marcus in tow. When she saw me, her face twisted. "What's she doing here?" The lawyer was calm. "Mrs. Eleanor Fairfield is a beneficiary. Stephanie inherited the house, cars, retirement accounts, and life insurance." She nodded smugly until the lawyer read the final provision. "To my mother, Eleanor Fairfield, who gave us the down payment for our home." I leave the contents of safety deposit box 3537 at First National Bank, with all associated documents. Stephanie's composure cracked. What safety deposit box? The lawyer explained it was private, set up by David for me alone. She demanded to know what was in it, but the lawyer handed me a sealed envelope with the key and bank details, saying only I could access it. Stephanie's eyes burned into me as I left. 3 days later, at First National Bank, I opened the box. Inside was a letter in David's handwriting. Mom, if you're reading this, I'm gone and Stephanie has shown her true colors. I'm not surprised. I've known for years who she is. My hands shook as I read on. You gave us $40,000 for the house. I invested it, adding to it when I could. The accounts are yours now. Beneath the letter were bank statements and investment records totaling $185,000, all in my name. Another folder held evidence, emails, texts, credit card statements documenting Stephanie's manipulation, her calling me a burden, planning to evict me, even discussing having me declared incompetent to access my pension. David's final words broke me. You deserve better than her cruelty. Use this money to build a life where no one can make you feel unwanted. Don't tell Stephanie until you're safe. Love, David. I met Stephanie for lunch at her invitation, knowing she wanted to pry about the box. She played the gracious hostess, suggesting we pool our resources. I showed her a screenshot of her texting her sister about turning my room into a gym and another about convincing David the first was a burden. Her face paled as I revealed more emails mocking David, credit card statements showing lavish spending while she claimed poverty. Why are you doing this? She demanded, her voice breaking. You humiliated me, threw me out after my son's funeral, called me worthless, I said. David saw it all and protected me. I showed her the account balance. $185,000, she gasped, insisting it should be hers. I stood, calm. David gave you the house, the insurance, the accounts. This is mine. As I walked out, Stephanie collapsed in her chair, defeated. I can't lose everything, she whispered. You're not, I said. You're losing what was never yours. I left her in her perfect house, surrounded by her perfect things, and stepped into a new life. David's gift wasn't just money, it was proof he'd seen the truth and loved me enough to ensure I'd never be at anyone's mercy again. Sometimes justice isn't revenge. It's the quiet certainty that the child you raised became the person you always hoped they'd be. Thanks for reading. Share your thoughts or stories below. Your voice matters.